Yeah, first off, thanks David for inviting me, and thanks to the hardcore who've stayed on. And thanks to David for inviting me on the how not to do an industrial transition. And I'll be as brief as I can because I'm going off to dinner with VNUM, and you don't want a lot of hungry, angry miners waiting for the food. So I'll start by beginning a bit about the Coalfields Regeneration Trust and how we work and what started. We were set up in 1999, 15 years after the strike and the pit closure programme. Really late to the process, but we had the power of John Prescott, who came in and fought the civil servants to make it happen. And he has made a significant difference to our communities. So how we operate at the moment is we build industrial units for SMEs, creating jobs and economic growth in the former coalfields. And I think the thing I want to highlight is it's been 40 years since our industry was decimated, and you still have the consequences of that today. So we did a study last year called The State of the Coalfields. So these are figures from 2024, and it just shows that this is not just the devastating impacts of the immediate situation that we're facing in Luton, Grangemouth and Scunthorpe. This stuff lingers, and it takes a long time for your communities to get over it. So in the coalfields as a whole, 5.7 million people across England, Scotland and Wales. We've only got 57 jobs per 100 residents of working age. The GB average is 73. Our wages are 6 to 7% lower than the GB average. And almost half of our neighbourhoods in the English coalfields are in 30% most deprived. This stuff has a legacy that takes time to come out of, even with support, which the coalfields never got until. And then all the fears and the sort of stuff that the Scunthorpe, Luton and Grangemouth are entering into, we've been there. We know this is what happens. So we know that our educational standards in the coalfields are in line with the rest of the country. Our kids are as bright as anyone else. So what happens? They go off to university in the cities and they don't come back. And that's not good for the cities, because then you've got the overheating of the housing market, which was referenced, you've got the competition for jobs, you've got the impact of commuting. So we have 1 in 7 people who live in the coalfields commuting to the cities. So I'm based in South Yorkshire. A lot of our coalfield people will go off into Leeds, go into Sheffield. We've seen impacts of this in the last 10 years. What we're starting to see now is we're getting lots of new housing estates built, and our coalfields are becoming commuter towns. And the issue we're having is that a lot of poverty in our communities is being masked, because what happens is a brand new housing development comes in, a lot of middle class professionals move in, they commute into Leeds or Newcastle or Cardiff, and you don't see the poverty that's there. It hasn't gone away, it's been hidden in the data. And when we first went through the transition in the 80s and 90s, our local authorities were in an awful position because, as we've discussed, when you have these industrial jobs, they're one town, they're the main employer in your town, so you haven't got an option to go into something else. So our councils were grabbing what they could get, which was call centres and warehouses. In the coalfields now, we've got 176,000 people who work in warehouses. That's the same size as the mining industry was in 1984. So we've replaced those coal jobs with warehouse jobs, but as we've talked about, pay, conditions, quality of those jobs is not the same. And that has an impact continually. So you lose your brightest, and I hesitate to say that because I'm talking academically, and there's a whole thing about skilled industrial jobs as well, but your academic kids go off to the cities and you're left with the older people and the people in the manual jobs. So you've got 1 in 5 people in the coalfields who are economically inactive. 1 in 10 people in the coalfields are claiming PIP or disability living allowance. That's 600,000 people out of 5.7 million in our areas. And then you've got the impact of poor health. It's not so much the legacy of the mines and the lung conditions of many of the miners suffer. This is the health impact of deprivation. It's people who, will live on the takeaways in our areas because of the deprivation, because of the lower wages. And people in the coalfields, as a result, die a year earlier than the national average and 3 years earlier than they would if they were in the southeast. So that's the grim stuff. So what are we doing about it? And as I say, we build industrial units for SMEs because we're creating those local jobs and that local economic growth and building it in our communities, because that's where we need it to go. Because we need people, we need the jobs, we need the economic benefits in our areas so we can help ourselves. We then reinvest the rental income from that into tackling the social and economic challenges of the coalfields. So we've got a health, work and skills programme. We run free football sessions for young people, and we work with 1,000 grassroots community organisations, because you can't, CRT, no organisation, councils, governments, none of us can do this alone. You need to have a joined up approach across your areas. So to give you one case study we've got, I was a reporter in a previous job, and I was at Kellingley pit top when the last pit closed in 2015, and I spoke to the miners and Chris Kitchen at the NUM at the time. And we built an industrial park on there working with Harworth Group, so we got 50% capital funding from European funds, Leeds City region, and half of it was debt finance based on a final settlement we got from UK government to transition us out. So we needed capital support to create these industrial units. And we only have a small area, it's 2 to 3 acres, and it's a 39,000 square foot industrial park. But the rental income makes a difference to supporting the community in Kellingley. So we work with 30 grassroots charities. We give them just over £17,000 in grants last year. We've helped 493 young people to get into football sessions, and we support the community shop, which offers surplus food at a discount to local people. And we're opening a new community health hub in Nottingham in the new year. So we're reinvesting it to help the community grow as a whole. And we've got a £50 million ask into the government to say, can we expand that ask? And we've been fortunate to have fantastic support from our coalfield MPs and the Labour Group of Coalfield Communities, and I'd like to thank Graham Morris, our chair, for that, because we've had fantastic support from our MPs. So that political action in Westminster has been vital, and the support of some our mayors. So I thought about what we should learn from the coalfields experience and what we probably pass on as a community, in my opinion, to Scunthorpe, Grangemouth and Luton. And I would say a plan to manage transition whenever you can is essential, and it's got to be more cost effective. We're still dealing with this 40 years on. You add up the costs economically, socially, the costs on families and communities, and we're talking about money to give these people a softer landing. It's got to be worth it. And I think we've got to think about the quality of the jobs, because I think a lot of the coalfield areas had to take what they could get. And there was an argument that any job is better than no job. It is, but you've got to aim for the quality and how you can build those quality jobs locally. And the other thing I'd highlight, which isn't often considered, is you will have new challenges coming down the track as you come out of your deindustrialisation that you'll have to deal with on top of the legacy. So you'll have, the poor job quality in the warehouses that we're now dealing with as communities. As I say, we're having our poverty masked by the building of new build housing estates and people using us as commuter towns. And we're having issues around community cohesion, which are coming in as a result of the deprivation. That's all stuff that when the pits closed in the 80s and 90s, people couldn't have foreseen necessarily. But I do have hope for the future, and I think our industrial communities across the board have a proud heritage and a good community foundation, which I think can be used to bring people together and have that discussion about what your future looks like and how you want to shape it in areas such as steel, oil and gas. And I think the fact we're having these discussions now, and that there are so many more options which we talked about in terms of the furloughs and the regeneration options are more plentiful now than in the 80s and 90s, and there's discussions and there's options on the table which people can take, which weren't considered or on the table in the 80s and 90s. So I think our hope is that other communities can learn the lessons from coal. We are doing our best to come back, but this has a legacy that stays with you, and if you can prevent that, that's something that has to be taken. So that's my